Welcome to Rare Breed Brotherhood. There comes a moment when the person you've become no longer fits the world you stood in. There is a quiet day in a Sigma male's life when everything suddenly feels different. Not dramatic, not loud, just a simple moment where he looks around and realizes he has outgrown the people he once tried so hard to understand. The same conversations that once felt normal now feel too small. The same advice that used to guide him now feels empty. And the same environments that once shaped him now feel like they're holding him back. This isn't arrogance, this is clarity. It is the moment he finally accepts that his mind doesn't move in circles. It moves forward, and that forward movement naturally pulls him away from people who remain in the same patterns. If you're listening to this and something inside you nods, it's because you carry the same energy that Sigma females are known for. You think deeply. You grow quickly. You outgrow situations faster than you can explain. You are not difficult, you are evolving, and evolution rarely comes with applause. This moment in a Sigma male's life is not about leaving people behind. It's about returning to himself. It's about choosing peace over noise, growth over comfort, and truth over approval. And if you feel that same shift in your own life, understand this. You're not becoming distant, you're becoming aligned. Stay with this video until the end. You're going to hear something that will make everything you've been feeling finally make sense. Let's dive in deeper, brothers. Number 1. He realizes some people loved the weaker version of him. There is a very specific moment in a Sigma male's growth that feels like a punch to the chest. It is the day he realizes some people did not love him. They loved the weaker version of him. Not because they were evil, but because the old him was easier to handle. Back then, he stayed quiet to avoid tension. He said yes when every part of him wanted to say no. He questioned his own voice and trusted people who did not even trust themselves. He tolerated behavior that drained him because he did not want to lose anyone. And people got used to that version of him. They got comfortable with it. They benefited from it. Then he grows. Slowly at first. Quietly. He starts setting limits. He starts choosing himself. He begins to speak with clarity instead of hesitation. He looks at situations with sharper eyes. He starts saying what he means without smoothing the edges. And that alone exposes everything. People who truly cared clap for his growth. They adjust with him. They respect the new standard. They rise with him. But the ones who were attached to the weaker version start acting confused, offended, or distant. Not because he changed for the worse, but because he changed in a way that they can no longer take advantage of. When they say he has become cold or distant, what they really mean is that he stopped accepting their comfort zones. When they say he is acting different, they mean he finally sees through the games they once hid behind. And this realization hits deep because he sees it clearly. They never loved him. They loved what he allowed. They loved what he tolerated. They loved the version of him that made them feel bigger, smarter, or in control. But the truth is simple. The new him is not harder to love. He is just harder to use. If you are watching this and this feels familiar, understand something important. Your strength is not the problem. Your clarity is not destroying relationships. Your growth is simply revealing the truth. And that truth is what will finally guide you to the people who loved you even before you learn to love yourself. Number 2. He notices conversations no longer nourish him. There comes a quiet day in a Sigma male's life when something shifts inside him, and it often happens in the middle of an ordinary conversation. He is sitting with people he has known for years, talking the same way they always have, but suddenly he hears himself from the outside. He is explaining simple truths with patience, but the people around him are not listening to understand. They are listening to defend their pride. They argue from ego, not from reason, and he feels himself getting drained instead of inspired. In that moment, he feels something he cannot ignore. The conversation is not nourishing him anymore. It is not feeding his mind, his spirit, or his growth. It is not expanding him. He is not learning. He is not challenged. He is not sharpened. He is simply managing the emotions of people who want to sound right instead of become better. This realization stings a little, not because he feels superior, but because he finally sees how long he has been shrinking himself to stay connected to people who stopped growing. He sees how often he held back deeper thoughts because he knew they would not land. He sees how many times he dimmed his insight because it made others uncomfortable. He sees how often he let conversations stay shallow because going deeper would expose insecurities people were not ready to face. And in that moment, his silence becomes louder inside him than any voice in the room. He understands he has evolved beyond the kind of discussions that go in circles. He learns that some people do not want truth. They want reassurance. They want noise. They want comfort. And he no longer fits into that space. But here is the beautiful part. This shift is the beginning of a new chapter. It is the signal that he is ready for higher rooms, richer conversations, people who think with intention, people who challenge him without competing with him, people who grow without feeling threatened. Number 3. He stops feeling guilty for thinking differently. There is a moment in a Sigma male's journey that almost feels like a quiet awakening. It happens when he finally stops feeling guilty for thinking differently. For most of his life, he carried this subtle pressure to make others comfortable with his intelligence, his depth, and the way his mind moves. He watered down his ideas. He softened his insights. He pretended not to see the things he clearly understood. He played small so other people would not feel insecure around him. But one day, something inside him clicks. He sees that his mind was never built for approval. It was built for depth. While others chase acceptance, he chases understanding. While others cling to familiar thoughts, he questions everything. His mind refuses to stay on the surface, even if the surface is where most people feel safe. This realization changes everything. He stops apologizing for the silence he needs. He stops explaining why he chooses solitude over noise. He stops forcing himself into conversations that do not match his wavelength. That old guilt he used to carry falls away, because he finally understands the truth. Thinking differently was never a flaw, it was his blueprint. And every time he tried to hide it, he betrayed himself a little. The distance it creates is not rejection, it is alignment. When he no longer tries to blend in, the separation that naturally forms is simply the world adjusting around his true shape. Some people will not understand him. Some will think he is too quiet, too intense, or too detached. But he no longer takes that personally. He knows that different minds experience life on different frequencies. And once he embraces this truth, he feels something powerful. Peace. Real peace. The kind that comes from no longer fighting your nature. The kind that allows you to grow without waiting for permission. The kind that transforms loneliness into clarity. Number 4. He realizes he's the only one fixing what others break. There is a point in a Sigma male's life when he suddenly notices a pattern he has been too busy to see. It happens quietly, usually after another situation where he stepped in to calm chaos he did not create. He looks back and realizes he is always the one holding things together, the one smoothing conflicts, the one offering clarity when everyone else is confused, the one repairing what other people damage through carelessness, ego, or immaturity. And the realization hits him deeply. In every group, there is always a stabilizer, and without trying, he has been that person again and again. He was the one people came to when things fell apart, even if they ignored him when everything was fine. He was the one who made problems look small because he handled them with patience and logic. He was the one who took responsibility when everyone else looked for someone to blame. At first, he might feel proud of this role. It shows strength, wisdom, and a calm that others lack. But then a different kind of truth begins to rise in him. He starts seeing that being the stabilizer comes with a cost. He has been pouring energy into people who never pour it back. He has been repairing situations caused by people who never learn. He has been carrying emotional weight for people who refuse to grow. This is when he understands something powerful. He has surpassed the environment he is in, not because he is better than anyone, but because he has outgrown the level of responsibility they still run from. He is thinking ahead while they are repeating mistakes. He is solving problems while they are creating new ones. And the gap keeps widening. What once felt like duty now feels like a warning, a sign that he no longer belongs in spaces where he is the only adult in the room. a sign that staying will only limit him, a sign that growth requires him to step back from roles that drain him. Number 5. He realizes outgrowing others is not arrogance, it's alignment. There is a powerful moment in a Sigma male's journey when he finally understands something most people never figure out. It is the moment he sees that outgrowing others is not arrogance, it is alignment. It is not a declaration that he is better than anyone. It is the simple truth that he has stepped into a version of himself that no longer fits the places he once tried to belong. It usually hits him during a quiet reflection. He looks at his life and sees how far he has come. He notices how his reactions have changed, how his priorities have shifted, and how his mindset has stretched far beyond what it used to be. And for the first time, he realizes the distance between him and others did not begin because he pulled away. It began because he kept growing while they stayed the same. This realization feels like a deep exhale. For years he questioned himself. He wondered if he was cold. He wondered if he was selfish. He wondered if he was becoming impossible to relate to. But now everything becomes clear. He has not risen above people. He has risen above the version of himself that needed validation, that feared judgment, that tried to keep everyone comfortable even when it cost him pieces of his own potential. The separation he once fought is not rejection, it is direction. It is life guiding him toward people, environments, and experiences that match his growth. It is the universe quietly removing what no longer supports his evolution. It is his inner self stepping forward and saying, "You cannot fit your future self inside your past life." This understanding frees him. It lifts the invisible guilt he never talked about. It gives him permission to move forward without apologizing for the space he leaves behind. And most importantly, it teaches him that real growth is not something everyone around you will understand. Some people were only meant to walk with the older version of you. Number 6. He stops adjusting his pace for people who never move. There comes a day in a Sigma male's life when he suddenly sees something he has been blind to for years. It usually happens during a moment of reflection, or after yet another situation where he held himself back so someone else would not feel intimidated or left behind. He looks at his life and realizes he has been walking at a slower pace, not because he lacked ability, but because he was trying to avoid making others uncomfortable. He remembers all the times he lowered his ambition so people would not feel insecure. He remembers the ideas he kept to himself because others complained he was moving too fast. He remembers the dreams he delayed because he did not want to outgrow certain relationships. He remembers toning down his drive, his curiosity, and his hunger, all in the name of maintaining peace with people who were never planning to move in the first place. Then one day, something in him shifts. He stops. Not the world, not the people around him. He stops slowing himself down. He feels this sudden clarity in his chest. He cannot spend his life pausing his evolution for people who are comfortable standing still. He cannot keep dragging people who have no interest in growing. He cannot keep shrinking to match environments that fear change. This moment is not angry. It is not dramatic. It is calm, almost peaceful. He simply decides to walk at his real pace. And the interesting part is this. The moment he stops adjusting for others, the gap becomes obvious. Some people begin to fall behind. Some look confused. Some even feel threatened. But he no longer apologizes for it. He finally understands that his journey is his responsibility, not theirs. Moving forward stops feeling selfish. It starts feeling necessary. He realizes that growth only hurts people who refuse to grow with you. And he refuses to give up his future just to keep familiar faces comfortable. Number 7. He starts recognizing patterns. Faster than people can hide them. There is a moment in a Sigma male's life when something inside him sharpens without warning. He starts noticing patterns that others think they can hide. The manipulation, the jealousy, the subtle insecurities. They no longer slip past him. He sees the way someone's words contradict their intentions, the way actions repeat like a code, the little signs that once would have been invisible. And the realization hits him. This is not intuition. This is evolution. For years he may have been unaware, brushing off small betrayals or ignoring the quiet games people played. He may have even blamed himself for trusting too easily, for expecting honesty in a world that often offers appearances instead. But growth changes the lens. The Sigma male begins to see the rhythm behind human behavior. He notices the triggers, the reactions, and the patterns that reveal who people truly are. What once took hours, days, or months to understand now appears almost instantly. This clarity is not about cynicism. It is about survival, clarity, and alignment. The moment he reads someone's hidden motives, he no longer feels obligated to explain, to justify, or to overcomplicate. He understands that he cannot fix what is broken inside others, and he no longer wastes his energy trying to manage games people play unconsciously. He begins to invest only in transparency, in honesty, in people whose growth matches his own. And in this moment, he realizes something deeper. The patterns he sees are mirrors reflecting his own evolution. They are proof that he is moving faster, thinking sharper, and rising higher than the environments and people around him. It is not about judging them. It is about protecting himself. It is about knowing that his energy, time, and focus are too valuable to leave in the hands of those who cannot rise with him. If this resonates with you, stay with this video. Understanding patterns is not about control. It is about awakening. It is about finally seeing the truth and choosing the people, places, and paths that honor your growth. Number 8. He learns that love without growth is just a cage. There is a day in a Sigma male's life when love suddenly looks different. He begins to see clearly that love without growth is not freedom. It is a cage. For years he may have poured himself into relationships, friendships, or even family ties, believing that loyalty, patience, and care were enough to make them work. He gave time, attention, and energy, thinking that love itself could sustain connection. But then he notices a pattern. He sees that some people never evolve. They resist change, fear depth, and discourage ambition. They are comfortable staying in the same place while he continues to grow. And in that moment, he realizes the truth. Those relationships that once felt warm and safe were actually subtle traps. They were cozy for the other person because they allowed him to be giving, forgiving, and patient, but they never encouraged him to expand. They were not cages built with malice, but with comfort disguised as care. This realization is painful, but freeing. He begins to see that real love does not limit. Real love inspires, challenges, and aligns with growth. It does not cling to a version of him that has already evolved. It does not demand he shrink himself to make someone else comfortable. He understands that the ties he once held onto were holding him back. The moment he accepts this, he begins to release what no longer serves him. He stops trying to fix people who resist growth. He stops making excuses for those who cannot meet him where he is. And he begins seeking relationships and connections that are alive with mutual development, honesty, and respect for each other's journey. If you feel this truth stirring inside you, understanding that love without growth is a cage is not rejection. It is liberation. It is a call to step into connections that honor your evolution and allow your true self to flourish. Number 9. He realizes his loneliness was misdiagnosed. There is a moment in a Sigma male's life when he finally looks at himself and the people around him and has a quiet, almost shocking realization. He understands that the emptiness he has felt for so long was never loneliness. It was misalignment. For years he thought something was wrong with him because he often felt disconnected, isolated, or misunderstood. He blamed circumstances, timing, or even himself. Then he starts noticing the truth. He was surrounded by people, yes, but most of those connections were shallow. Conversations rarely went deeper than surface-level exchanges. Interests rarely matched. Minds rarely challenged one another, and over time, those shallow interactions began to suffocate him. The more he shared his thoughts, his curiosity, and his vision, the more he realized that most people could not meet him there. They were comfortable with small talk, predictable routines, and familiar patterns. This is when he understands that the real problem was not being alone. It was being with the wrong energy. The emptiness he felt was the echo of his depth, trying to find resonance in a world that preferred repetition. The frustration, the subtle dissatisfaction, the pull toward solitude, all of it made sense. He wasn't lonely. He was waiting for alignment, for people, spaces, and experiences that matched the way his mind and spirit moved. And this realization changes everything. Loneliness becomes a tool, not a curse. Solitude becomes a space for growth, reflection, and clarity. He no longer feels pressure to fill every empty moment with people who do not add value. He begins seeking alignment instead of company. He begins to understand that being surrounded is not enough. Being understood is what truly matters. Misdiagnosed loneliness is a hidden blessing. It is a signal, not a sentence. It points to the connections and environments that will finally honor your depth and allow the real you to thrive. In conclusion, growth is not about leaving people behind. It is about stepping fully into who you are meant to be. The day a Sigma male realizes he outgrew everyone is not a day of loss. It is a day of clarity, strength, and quiet triumph. He sees the truth of his journey. The people who could not match his depth, vision, or growth were never meant to walk with him forever. And for the first time, he feels the freedom that comes from no longer bending, shrinking, or apologizing for his evolution. If you are watching this and you feel that same energy inside you, this is your moment of recognition. You are a Sigma female. You think deeply. You sense patterns others miss. You move through life with quiet strength and fierce independence. You do not settle for shallow connections, empty validation, or spaces that suffocate your growth. Your mind and spirit are wired to expand, and sometimes expansion means leaving behind what no longer serves you. This realization is not rejection, it is alignment. It is proof that your evolution cannot be contained by old environments, old relationships, or old expectations. The people who stay in your life will be those who rise with you, those who respect your boundaries, and those who value the real you, not the version that once existed for their comfort. Remember this: stepping into your growth does not make you distant, cold, or unloving. It makes you honest, powerful, and aligned. The Sigma path is not meant for everyone, and that is exactly what makes it extraordinary. Embrace your evolution, honor your depth, protect your energy, and never apologize for outgrowing people who were never ready for the person you have become. Your journey is not just survival, it is mastery, it is clarity, and it is the unmistakable signature of someone who is becoming their true self. Watch the rest of this video and let this truth settle in. You are exactly where you are meant to be, and your growth is your greatest gift. Thank you for watching, brothers.